And let's compare how states with a flat tax rate versus a progressive tax rate perform. And here's one thing. States without the progressive income tax, i.e. a flat tax or no tax, grow 36% faster.
So if people have color TV, they can see that red line, which is, you're saying, growing much faster.
Yes, the flat tax or no tax. Flat or none.
That green line,
progressives.
Progressive tax.
Yes.
They're definitely growing at a slower rate.
Yes.
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing a lot of politics and public policy and a lot of what we used to call political economy. Because we have as our guest Vince Kolber. Vince is somebody who understands, luckily, politics and public policy and economics, which is a little different, but this is kind of similar to the economy, and risk-taking and competition and restructuring and bankruptcy. And you might say, Jeff, where is all this going? Well, Vince, what is the #1 issue facing the state of Illinois as we tape this today on May 10th, the year 2018?
So, thanks, Jeff. It's great to have this opportunity to visit with you today and take on your questions. And this question in particular, I think, can be focused on the political situation we have with the governor's race going, and what are the issues that are going to be prominent in that competition, that political competition. I maintain that the tax situation in Illinois is the #1 issue of this campaign, because we do have a contrast between these two individuals who are running, Bruce Rauner and J.B. Pritzker. Bruce Rauner, on the one hand, someone who came out of the private equity business, very successful in it, and J.B. Pritzker, on the other hand, someone who comes from a family of extraordinary wealth who has built up his own investment firm. J.B. Pritzker, from a family and circumstance where tax deferral and avoidance is in the DNA of their family. Bruce Rauner, on the other hand, who in his term as governor did do one important thing, and that is he vetoed the tax increase that was put in front of him, but unfortunately he was unable to get it to stick. So we do have this tax increase in Illinois, and it has a significant consequence. Pritzker, on one hand, is going for a progressive tax, and Rauner, on the other hand, could be a blocking action for further tax increases.
So what is at the core of what's wrong with the state of Illinois, and how do you fix it? And Vince, how do we know something's wrong at the core with the state of Illinois? How does it manifest itself?
Well, we have many indicators of that. Let me go to this one, right? Here's some analytical work by Truth in Accounting. And this is a local-based think tank that analyzes financial statements of all the states of the United States of America and major cities, and also goes into understanding our federal fiscal condition. But here we see where Illinois is when it gets ranked among the 50 states. Well, we're right at the bottom. We're competing with New Jersey. And what this does...
We can just, so if we're focusing in, we hope the camera will get there.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the 5 states on the top, the bottom 5 sinkhole states.
Yes.
Which truthinaccounting.org, I think they use that phrase.
They use the...
I know Sheila Weinberg, the founder
Absolutely.
and CEO of that organization, who, by the way, is helping to make this show possible, and we very much appreciate that. And so Sheila has devoted much of her adult life to this being this analysis. So looking at these states, and you can see over there it says what is each person?
What
per
does this mean?
taxpayer? Like Massachusetts, which is the top of the last 5 states, the 5th from the bottom. What does it say? 32,900 per taxpayer. What does that mean?
That's how much the state is in debt per taxpayer. We work our way through that, and we've got Illinois there at 50,400. Now,
Per taxpayer.
Per taxpayer. That's not the population, but the
You,
people
as a
who actually pay taxes.
That's the average.
That's a subset.
You owe 50,000. I owe 50,000. Every taxpayer on average owes that amount.
It's the $200+ billion of total liabilities of the state divided by the number of taxpayers, not the population, but the taxpayers. Why do we do it that way? Because only a taxpayer can retire the debt. Right? Someone who's not a taxpayer but living in the state is not contributing and cannot retire the debt. That's why it's important that we categorize this as by taxpayer. We should also add one thing, because we're in the city of Chicago. City of Chicago's debt per taxpayer is $40,000. So if you're a state of Illinois taxpayer in Chicago, put the state and the city together, it's $90,000.
So it means if you're thinking of, if you're a CEO and you're thinking of coming to Chicago, Illinois, to locate here, and you're going to bring your employees from another state, what do they walk into? They walk into, somebody says, well, here, you owe the state, on average, $50,000 as a taxpayer. You owe the city $40,000. You've just inherited, if you move into the city and the state of Chicago, Illinois, roughly $90,000, right?
That's absolutely correct, Jeff, and we want you to come. We need people here.
But how do we persuade that person or these people to come if they say, but if they go to North Dakota or Alaska, what does this tell us? Those are the top 5 sunshine states. Alaska is number 1. People look closely, it says taxpayer surplus on the left. For the sinkhole states, it says taxpayer
burden.
Burden.
Yes, it's the debt.
Taxpayer burden.
Yeah.
So it means Alaska, 38,200, they got a surplus.
Yes.
It's like you come there to Alaska, and we're going to give you on average 38,000 over time, right? So how do we say to people, don't go to Alaska and North Dakota where they give you something, come to Chicago, Illinois, where we almost give you a $100,000 liability? What's our argument?
It's a bad trade. It's a bad trade. And there's 2 things that I think are important. Most people coming into states don't look at this type of information, right? This is why we have an organization like Truth in Accounting, some of our other local think tanks like Open the Books and Illinois Policy Institute. These are groups that are trying to illuminate this reality. And once we get this reality illuminated, we can provide hope, because we can talk about structuring and what people who get elected into government should be doing. You know, there's 4 things they can do, right? They can spend, that's easy. Next easiest is to cut taxes, right? The 3rd thing is to raise taxes. And the 4th thing is to cut spending. But they never really get to cut spending because they're not looking at this information, and the electorate is not. So that's why we're grateful to have this conversation today, so we can start getting this eliminated.
If we had J.B. Pritzker here, and J.B., we hope you'll come on, discuss these issues with me and perhaps others, and, you know, rebut this. Or Bruce Rauner, we hope you'll come on and either rebut or support this. And wouldn't it be nice if J.B. Pritzker and Bruce Rauner could sit down and talk among themselves these issues, right?
Well, I would say that meeting and that debate would be essential. And I think all those in the media who have anything to do should bring continuous pressure upon them to get the 2 of them in the room frequent times between now and November.
So people who watch this show regularly know that a few weeks ago we taped a show with David Greising, the new CEO, president of the Better Government Association. We talked on that show and we said, can we model what 10 discussions, we won't even call them debates, 10 discussions between Rauner and Pritzker might look like, and we talked about budget issues, revenues, spending, reforms, and I said, gee, Mr. Greising, do you think you could go back and talk to Andy Shaw, who's what, I guess, Chairman Emeritus now, my good friend Andy, and the others at BGA, and see if you want better government, wouldn't this be good? You guys will get Shaw, we'll get Greising, Berkowitz will hold their coat, and we'll go, you know, hat in hand to Pritzker and Rauner and say, come on, we'll figure out how to get these 10 things going. And then they got back to me and he said, yeah, we're not going to go down that path. So it is incumbent on somebody else to join with me to get this done. It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it, right?
Well, that's true. There are a lot of those kind of jobs out there. They're thankless, but we're grateful to the extent that we keep instigating that idea.
Okay, so we're going to cover a lot of that in the remaining, I don't know, 17 minutes or so. We're going to flesh this out. We're going to get to the core of this. We've talked about these pension liabilities and what a drag that is on attracting people, and we're not sure how we're going to deal with that. But it's even worse. There's more bad news coming. Because last year we had big news on the tax front, both in Illinois and the federal government, right?
Yes, yes.
And
we should dive into that.
Yeah, because your company, Rizitco, we should say we're taping this at the offices of Rizitco. They're downtown Chicago. It's a nice representative company. Because it's a closely held company, is that right?
Absolutely.
You had
Family
experience.
owned.
You got experience out in the world working for other companies for what, 5, 6, 7 years before?
Right.
Started this company in the early 80s.
Yes.
Kept it going. You figured out. You went to Wharton. There's the camera. You went to Wharton.
I did.
School. You and Donald Trump. Perhaps we can come back to that later, maybe
Sure.
in the next show.
Sure.
You learned business. You came over to Booth, Graduate School of Business at the University of Chicago. You learned business even more.
Nighttime.
Nighttime.
Yes.
You went to the old, before they had the Gleacher Center,
Yes.
that 190 East Delaware type
Yes,
thing?
the International Harvester Training Building.
We're
once
dating
was.
ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. But that was great because it's not a matter of where you learn. Gleacher's beautiful. It's a matter of what you learn and who you learn from. The University of Chicago, more economist, Nobel Prize winners than anybody. And by that I mean somebody who taught at the University of Chicago, somebody who was a researcher there, somebody who had some affiliation. You walk around there, I think it's on the 6th floor, and you don't see the Nobel Prize winners at the University of Chicago, not just economics, but various places you can see just the economists. It is mind-boggling, and you got the benefit of that education.
Absolutely. So grateful for it, and it's been so important. And I would say for all the opportunity that I've had in Illinois to get great education here, to meet my wife here, to raise a family here, I feel obligated to Illinois that we need to do something to pull it out of this tailspin as much as possible, because a state is a terrible thing to waste.
Okay, so your company, Rizitco, is based here, as we said.
Yes.
They invest in commercial aircraft and railroad equipment. Must have been impacted by these changes. The state of Illinois changed its tax policy for the worse.
Yes.
In some respects, at least. Maybe some for the better, some for the worse. The federal government changed its tax policy. So what did the Illinois income tax increase and the federal tax cuts, which sounds like a good thing, mean to you and other Illinois-based closely held businesses,
okay,
and those thinking of locating?
Let's get into this.
Yeah,
and let me unpack it a bit.
Okay.
Let me unpack it a bit. So what we had in well, first of all, Illinois, last year we got the bad news, right, that there would be a 33% increase in the state income tax rate for individuals. And individuals who own companies like this, closely held sub-S corporation we call the category pass-throughs because the owners pay the taxes, not the corporation itself. The owners pay it, pass-throughs. So in federal tax reform, the other category...
Before we get to the federal,
yeah.
in the state level, the individual income tax rate for individuals and for owners...
went up 33%. It was
3.75,
3.75 and went up to 4.95.
So 1.20...
Yeah, it was a 33% increase.
It's a 30% increase.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had that, right? And then you had the federal. And to look at the whole question, you've got to look at the two together. But let's unpack. Deal with the federal for a moment. The most important thing about the federal for Illinois and all businesses is that the C corporation rate got reduced from 35 to 21%.
That's a good thing.
That was monumental, important for the country, important for a state like Illinois that has a big raft of Fortune 500 companies, including at the very top, right, last year, was Walgreens Corporation, right? And Walgreens Corporation did a transaction called a corporate inversion, right? Why? Because they were trying to avoid this 35% rate. So they married up with a company called Booth, based in Europe,
Yeah.
based in Europe, where they got a much lower tax rate, so that they would be able to have their company operating under a low tax rate basis. Now, it's not clear how the dust is settled on that transaction since it's so new in the U.S. tax reform, but that was the largest revenue company based in Illinois, over $100 billion a year. Next is Boeing, $94 billion, and many others coming down the line. This C corporation drop has basically stopped that. So the one thing that's good for the country and Illinois C corporations is that we're not going to see more of those corporate inversions, which we're starting to take pace.
Okay, so that's a good thing.
Very good thing.
Okay.
It's been great for the market. Companies have better after-tax earnings.
Who benefits from this? Who benefits from this?
The owners of those companies, which are largely pension funds.
And these are pension funds.
All across the land.
And the people in pension funds are individuals across the country.
Of all stripes,
Okay.
right?
So their rate of return will go up in their pension funds, their investment opportunities. These are individuals.
Yes,
Because
right.
some people would say, oh, you just said how corporations benefited.
Yes.
But you're saying, no, these are pensions, these are owners, they're individuals.
The pension funds of the state of Illinois that pay the teachers, as an example, that fund that we have, right, even though it's way underfunded, right, has marginally benefited, right? So that's important.
Okay.
So let's get the federal kind of out of the way for the moment, because we've got to look at the particulars of Illinois. Now, how did they accomplish that big change, right? Well, the way they did it is they eliminated the SALT deduction. That's not the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty.
Right.
It is state and local tax deductions, right? We went from, it used to be deductible on your return, and it is no longer. So here is the way it looks, right? Here's the Illinois income tax situation. We had a 3.7.
Make sure we get this focused on so people can see it.
We had a 3.75% rate.
Right.
We went to this 4.95 last year, right? We were unable to stop it. Rauner did veto it, but we had recalcitrant Republicans who teamed up with Madigan to make it happen. Terrible thing.
They overrode the veto.
Overrode the veto,
So
and there's where we are.
That's past the tax increase.
So they think, okay, maybe it's a 33% increase, maybe it'll work. We had it up that high once before, let's go back to it. Okay. What they didn't anticipate is federal tax reform. In federal tax reform, to get that drop in that 35 to 21 for C corporations, the way they did it is they eliminated the SALT deduction. In other words, you can no longer deduct on your federal income tax return your state and local taxes, with the exception of $10,000. Put that as $10,000 aside for a moment, because businesses that produce hundreds of thousands or millions of income that are pass-throughs, right? That's not going to make any difference. Okay, what was that SALT deduction worth? Well, when we had it, right, at the highest marginal rate, it was worth 1.5% or $1.50. So that if you were paying 3.75 to the state and you got this deduction, your net after-tax cost of state and federal was $2.25 or 2.25%. Now we go to the combination situation. We got the state increase, right, up to 495, right, but we no longer get the SALT deduction, right? That goes to zero. So now that 495 is fully paid. It's a full cost. So literally, we go from paying $225, right, add another $270, right, to get to $495. That's a 120% increase, which is the underpinning to the situation that we have. And I pray that Bruce Rauner will get this and will wave this all across the land.
And what does he do about it if he gets it?
Well,
and he waves it. What is he trying to accomplish once he gets it?
Simply this. J.B. Pritzker, your progressive income tax is the death knell to Illinois.
Why? Because J.B. would say, well, that's not going to hurt those low-income or middle-income people. It's just going to go after the rich people, a small group of people. It's going to raise their rates. It's going to bring in revenue, J.B. would say, help education, help health care, help make our pensions more solvent. What do you say to J.B.?
We're going to go to this picture, right? What happens? What do people like me do, right, who have a business here in Illinois, who are looking at 120% increase? And if you raise this at all, this, now you go to 7 or 8, like you mentioned Wisconsin, right? That is a progressive, okay. And the highest rate is 7.65. And we have there's a raft of Democrats in Springfield who are looking at this and saying, "Hey, let's do that," right? Remember, raising taxes. It's the third thing, right?
So they're just
the
saying,
third thing.
I mean, I've heard.
We're going to go there. We want to go there, right?
Who wants to go there?
A raft of Democrats in Springfield, along with J.B. Pritzker, and Madigan would do this in a heartbeat.
And we've seen the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, a think tank, a liberal think tank here in Chicago. I saw somebody from that organization interviewed by Paul Lisnick on Politics Tonight. And he said, look, Wisconsin has it. They're doing okay. Some of the other states have it in the surrounding area. Well, we can compete. If we raise our highest rate, from 4.95, it'll be in line with Wisconsin and other states. And so we're not going to lose people, right? Because it's the same.
Jeff.
Is that argument, is there something wrong with that argument? Because Mr. Lisnick said, well, that's good. Sounds good to me. Okay. And the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, they said that's good to them.
No, we're going to get to that. I'm going to give you a deeper dive into this, right? But the fundamental is this. Where do you go? A business like mine, right? I'm not dependent upon Illinois, right? My customers aren't here. It's not like I have to walk down the street and shake their hand every day. They're all over, right? A business like this, and there are many of them, don't need to be in this location, right? So where are we going to go? Well, guess what? We're going to go to Tennessee, where it's zero.
What is zero? What is zero?
Zero income tax.
No, they have somehow
no state income tax.
You pay 0% of your income as
zero.
Income tax rate.
Zero. Texas, zero. Florida, zero, right? Wow. I can take you through other interesting comparisons. I'm studying Illinois, Florida on many levels at the moment. But let me give you one other quick one on Florida, which you'll appreciate. Illinois has 7,000 government entities. We've got school districts ad nauseum. So does New Jersey. Big problem. That's why they've got these very high burdens. In Florida, They have one school district per county. Per county. You got 100 counties, 100 school districts. How many do we have? Hundreds, if not thousands. So there are many other interesting fundamental comparisons that Illinois has to understand. It's competing against these other states. But the other question that you raise, and in your question is, let's dive a little bit deeper and let's compare how states with a flat tax rate versus a progressive tax rate perform. And here's one thing. States without the progressive income tax, i.e. a flat tax or no tax, grow 36% faster.
So if people have color TV, they can see that red line, which is, you're saying, growing much faster.
Yes, the flat tax or no tax. Flat or none.
That green line,
progressives.
Progressive tax.
Yes.
They're definitely growing at a slower rate.
Yes. Not only are they growing at a slower rate, they're spending more of the state GDP on government. But here's the other very important one, and that is, if it's here, employment, right? Guess what? Economic growth and employment, you'd see by the shape of those graphs, are correlated, right? They match up.
So it's higher employment in that red line.
Higher employment.
That's the state without a progressive income.
Absolutely.
So wait, so JB says, I don't know, JB, what does JB Pritzker say when you say that to him? JB, do you want to have more employment or less? I know JB, he's a good guy. He's going to say more employment. So JB, come on and explain to us what's wrong with this. We're on balance.
Nothing is wrong with this.
But we've got to have JB have his say, and if JB can explain what's wrong, you're in trouble. If he can't, he's in trouble. This is a typical University of Chicago School of Business Analysis, Booth Graduate School of Business, Wharton, where Donald Trump went before you were there. No, but this is straight economics.
Yeah, he paved the way, didn't he?
This is straight. Okay, we only got about a minute left.
Okay.
We got about a minute left. You got to wrap this up. We got to get you back, Mr. Kolber, because you're not done.
So look, but here's the deal. I mean, this is really important about my own role in trying to raise up Jeannie Ives, who was a full spectrum conservative like me. And Rauner and I don't get along on the full array of issues, but on taxes, I'm highly confident we do. And to me, this blocking action, which has to happen for Illinois against the progressive, is the raison d'etre to have him.
We want JB Pritzker coming here. We want Bruce Rauner coming here. We want to focus on the big issues. You went to Wharton. You went to Booth. You support school choice, big shoulders, open the books, transparency. You ran for Congress on these principles in 2014, 2016. These principles are understand taxes, what they do, what impact they have, competition, risk-taking, bankruptcy. We haven't even gotten to bankruptcy. That's a whole nother show and very important because it may be a way out. Restructuring may be a way out. And that's something you know something about from your business at Rusitco in terms of restructurings and your prior history.
Dealing with railroads and airlines.
So, folks, you just remember one thing. You come back next week and every week to Public Affairs, and I promise you, we're going to deliver. We will have more of these concepts. We hope to have more Vince Kolber coming on to discuss these things. Don't come back to see Berkowitz. He's nothing. Come back to see people like Kolber, and we hope, like J.B. Pritzker and Bruce Rauner.
Public Affairs very much thanks Truth in Accounting, our underwriter, for helping to make the production of this show possible.